Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Liverpool.com podcast. I'm your host, Mo Stewart, and we've got Ben Bocsak and James Martin back from his holidays. Now, a holiday sounds pretty good for all of us right now. It's absolutely blazing hot here in England, but the trail for Liverpool FC, it's gone a little bit cold, I would say. I mean, the Reds have returned from their Asia preseason trip. They've got a few more days of hard training before another couple of games this week. It doesn't seem like there's any more new imminent transfers unless something's happened in the last 30 seconds I'm not aware of. And we're not doing a whole show about Ben Davies. So we're going to have a little bit of a fun show today. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to look back through Jurgen Klopp's summer signings, and we're going to pick a little team, our five-a-side team, out of our favourite ones of those. Now, across the last 7 summers, Klopp has brought 23 new players to the club in the summer window who have appeared for the first team. So we're not counting Andy Lonergan, if any of you are out there thinking about Andy Lonergan. But the thing about this, you could very easily all end up picking the same team. So it's going to be a draft, which means that not everybody's going to be able to pick Alisson and not everybody's going to be able to pick Thiago. Now, we are going to pick lots. I've got a little lot here. But before we get going on this, James, this is an exciting experiment, I think. But we were talking off air. It may be that the who gets the order first may well be decisive. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it could well be. I mean, it might balance itself out over the course of the 5 positions. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly some key areas where there's people I'll certainly be targeting, and if I miss out on them, then it's going to hurt the team quite significantly. I think we're all looking in goal as a potential key area, but yeah, it's a good format. It means that we're going to end up with 3 very different teams, and yeah, I mean it's a strong squad of 23. So I think there's ways of putting together more than one good team. So I don't know what's going on here. I'm giving you a bit of a light show. The light keeps flickering on and off. I'm just going to go and turn it off to avoid this going on for the whole show. But yeah, so those are my comments on the format with added light show for you.
I wasn't sure if it was some kind of like signaling, like someone was telling you who to be picking and all that kind of thing. So I'm glad you turned it off.
Millionaire style.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is technically a competition, so I don't want to get any kind of cheating involved. But James, before he started doing his dirty cheating, Ben, James did make a good point. There is quite a big squad here to work with, and a varied squad if you're looking at it. But this is a 5-a-side team, and we have to think about 5-a-side football because our hypothetical 5-a-side teams are going to be taking on the rest of the world in the Premier League, and I want ours to be the best. So you're going to bring that into play as well, thinking about who's going to be who's winning all the rondos, who's the last man in the middle.
I don't know. I suppose, yeah, it all depends on really the tactics everyone's going to go for. Some people like to keep it tight at the back and will probably go, defensive focused, and others might go all out attack. And yeah, who knows? I'm not quite sure what the best option is for 5-a-side. Sometimes the all out attack seems to be the way to go, but sometimes it's the defense that wins.
I mean, well, you of the 3 of us, you're the one who probably plays football the most regularly. So I was hoping that some of that knowledge will kind of help you within this. But
yeah, it's tricky. You never know. Sometimes I feel like I have the best team, and then we lose. And then sometimes I feel like I have a terrible team, and we win. So it's always 50-50 with 5-a-side.
Put it this way, depending on who I get to pick, there's a few in there who I'm sure that if I get them in the same team, y'all better watch out. That's what I'm saying. So before we go any further, let's show you exactly who this are. And ironically enough, it's exactly 23 players who Klopp has signed in the summer window who have appeared for the first team. I want to clarify those 2 rules again. To be honest, with the World Cup coming up later this year, I'd fancy this team to do pretty well in that World Cup if you could put them together. The other thing I want to point out, because obviously some of these players are no longer at the club, we are judging them on their Liverpool peak, their LFC peak. So that's probably good news for some, like Gini Wijnaldum, probably less good news for Dominic Solanke. But that's what you have to keep in mind. When they were at the club at their best, It's up to you to decide how high or even when that was, but that's sort of the players that we're picking. So yeah, looking at that squad, there's plenty of ways you could go, James. Really, isn't there?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and like you say, you've got to keep that five-a-side aspect in mind. There's certainly players there who've done very well for Liverpool, but you wouldn't necessarily be straight thinking about them in the five-a-side context. But yeah, I like the parameters you've put on it. It certainly makes for an interesting twist. Like you say, there'd be a chance of picking up a kind of bargain in Solanke later on if we were going on just kind of how they're doing now. He's certainly had a bit of a revival in the Championship, but yeah.
Well, I mean, you could argue that case if it comes to it, honestly. I mean, there's going to have to be a bit of arguing. Obviously, with the guys to the new signings, Calvin Ramsey, Darwin Núñez, Fabio Carvalho, they haven't technically appeared. I think we're kind of assuming that they are all going to make appearances for the first team. But again, in terms of their qualities, there's going to have to be a little bit of maybe a massaging or a convincing grandstanding, let's say. But we need to get into the meat of this show now. We need to get into the important business, and we are here. I have 3 names. I don't know which is which. I'm about to pick the first name. As you'll notice, this is going a lot quicker and smoother than all other draws, higher Champions League. So the first person to be picking will be James.
Yes.
Congratulations. Okay. 1 down, 1 to go. Who cuts second? To be honest, because this is a snake draw, which means that in each different round, whoever picks last picks 2. So to be honest, second is probably the worst place to be. And the person who is second is Ben. Unlucky. But hey, as we've said, there's plenty of quality in the squad. There are no real losers here. Well, maybe there will. And just for, clarity's sake, the last one is indeed me, as we can see. So, without any further ado, James, step up to the plate, sir. Although, to be honest, I feel like I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, this is the position I was hoping to get first pick in. That's a big boost. I think in the comments now you can all just write that I've won already, because this is where there's the greatest gulf between one option and the rest. I'm obviously going to pick Alisson as my goalkeeper.
Yes. Congratulations. Of course, you win the Alisson lottery. There's not really much you can say about it. He is comfortably the best keeper of those 3. I was on Transfermarkt trying to maybe massage the idea of Kevin Kelleher coming back from loan into a new signing, but no. It would ruin the integrity of the whole competition. So, congratulations, James. You win. Ben, you actually have quite an interesting choice because you can obviously pick a goalkeeper, but there's a whole lot of other riches out there. So, who's going to be your first pick?
I think it might be a surprising one, but I actually have knowledge of him playing 5-a-side, and that's Harvey Elliott, because he used to play with my brother's friends and he went to the same school as my little brother. So I know he's quite good at 5-a-side from his friends and him telling me about him. So I'm confident. I got a good 5-a-side player in there and someone who's experienced in that format of the game. And I think, with his close control, his sort of finishing and his sort of low center of gravity, I think he can be a really good 5-a-side player, because in those tight spaces, you need to be good in the one-on-one battles, and I think Elliott is perfect for that.
That's a really, really good. See, this is what I was talking about your extra knowledge of playing the game, understanding the spaces and everything. This is the kind of one that might really come in handy. I probably wouldn't have picked him first. He may have still been around on the board afterwards. So the smile's probably telling you how I feel about this pick. But no, it's a solid pick, and I do think the Harvey will do well for you. So, as I mentioned, in the snake draw, I get to pick 2 now because I get to pick the last of round 1 and the first of round 2. So, round 1, I'm going to surprise absolutely no one and pick Thiago Alcantara, because he's Thiago Alcantara, and he literally was born on a 5-a-side pitch. and he could get in and out of it. I feel like it's kind of redundant me even explaining why I'm picking Thiago Alcantara. You guys saw him. You know he's good. My second pick, probably equally as obvious, Mo Salah. I know, once again, yes, we talk about the fact that there's an array of forwards in there, but again, close control, tight spaces, finishing ability. He's not going to have to use his head a whole lot. I feel like there's kind of a lock. So yeah, those are my two picks. Feel free to cry into your beers as we speak. But in general, Ben, I'll ask you first. What do you think about those two marvelous picks by myself?
I think for five-a-side, I mean, for an 11-a-side, I think those picks are really good. But for five-a-side, will Salah be able to use his pace in a limited, space? And with Thiago as well, his best qualities are his passing range. But in five-a-side, like, is he going to be able to bring that out? I don't know. I'm not trying to undermine you, Mo, but
I mean,
at
I feel
the
like
end
you're
of
on
the day,
it.
this is a competition. So.
Well, I mean, in the interest of competition, allow me to rebut on both of those points. First of all, no, Salah won't be having to run away from everybody, but we've seen him in tight spaces, wriggle out of everyone. I only need to say two things: Manchester City and Watford. Like, both of those could have happened on a five-a-side pitch, and he'd have scored those goals. And yeah, the thing with five-a-side, there's all these extra angles you're not thinking about. So although they might not necessarily see a pass there might be a pass off the ball. Like, come on, Thiago's the geometry master. He's going to find all the angles you need. But anyway, I've said enough. It's your
Plus,
second
if it's
pick.
anything like my five-a-side, then the numbers will be ropey anyway, so there might be some space to work in if a couple of people don't turn up one week.
Exactly. And I mean, like, think about how easy it is for Thiago to nutmeg and bamboozle players on the pitch. He'll be doing it in his sleep. I'm telling you this one. But yeah, sorry. Continue with your second pick, Ben.
I'm going to go for Joel Matip, just because, I'm sorry, James. I know you probably had him in mind, but that's not purely why I picked him. I think he's probably one of the best players on the ball in terms of defenders at Liverpool. He always tends to go on those mazy runs forward, and I would like to see him do that in five-a-side as well. I think in five-a-side you need to have players who are capable of making an impact at both ends, and Matip is the perfect example of that. He's a great defender, and he can go forward, and I can see him scoring a couple of goals in five-a-side because on a full pitch he has to make quite a lengthy run to get to goal, but in five-a-side that run is reduced significantly. So yeah, I could see him getting a few goals, and I think he's a good option to have.
I'm not surprised he's the first defender coming off the board, to be honest with you, because I agree 100% with everything you say. He was on my list to maybe go for early, but I went with Salah. James, I'm sure you're as gutted as I am.
Probably more, if anything, Mo. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. But yeah, I applaud the logic. He'd definitely be banging them in five-a-side, and of course, a strong defensive presence.
Yeah, indeed. Right, so you get your second pick now, James. After seeing all those go off the board, who are you going with? You actually get two. I should point that out as well.
Yeah. So these are not necessarily in order because I get two now, but given that Ben's gone with Matip, I'll follow on with Konate. It's much of the same rationale applies. He's played quite a bit like Matip last season. He's also probably got that extra physicality, which I think can come in handy in five-a-side, not necessarily in the air, of course, but like in terms of you get someone like a Harvey Elliott with his quick feet, as Ben's alluded to. Konate's just going to shrug him off, isn't he? It's just pure muscle and physicality. It definitely has a place in five-a-side. Get rid of all these tricky players and just dominate them with the strength. Konate is doing that job for me, and I think he can also show his technique on the ball, do a bit of a Matip. No one can quite match those heights of Matip, but he can do a reasonable impression. He can get forward with the best of them, and he can pick a pass in a tight space. So I like him for many of the same reasons that Ben went for Matip. Do you want to discuss that, or do you want me to do the second pick and then we can?
I feel like that's a strong pick. I do think as well that having Alisson behind you is going to kind of make him like an extra defender anyway. So you're kind of covered in that one. You didn't need to get Konate. You could have saved him for someone else. No, it's fine. It's fine. I understand that this is also when we get into draft games, tactics come in. So yeah, I'm marking down all of these little slides, but that's fine. Fine, we'll continue. Ben, do you echo what James was saying about Canate?
No,
Unfortunately,
I
I don't.
agree. I think if someone would have picked Matip before, I would have gone for Konate. I think he is the second best option in terms of defenders on the list. So yeah, I think that's a solid choice.
Yes. Okay. Hopefully you mess it up with this next pick.
Well, I don't necessarily think I'll be stealing one that you've got lined up. I suppose it's possible, but it's a bit of a punt in that he is one of the ones you mentioned who we haven't actually seen in a Liverpool shirt competitively just yet. But I think Darwin Núñez is going to be a good option for five-a-side. If you think about all the reasons we've signed him, it's that kind of poacher's instinct, the pure number 9. They are such nuisances in five-a-side. Anytime he gets the ball, he's just going to be firing it straight in far post, keeper helpless every single time. And it's going to be clockwork. Everyone knows what he's going to do, and it's just trying to stop him, and no one can. And it's very, very annoying unless you're on their team. So I want him on my team.
And considering the best man to stop him, you've already got him in your team as well.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a pretty strong move. Oh gosh. All right. Yeah, Ben, it's hard with Darwin Núñez, isn't it? Because we are still kind of projecting based on what we've seen, and the Liverpool system is a very different one. But he's going to be within these kind of five-a-side, short-sided games literally as we speak. So they'll know before we do. But I suspect that James might be right on this one.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think that's a good pick. It's a good selection. I think I've definitely played against those tall, tricky number 9s who just tend to find the back of the net from anywhere and sort of linger in front of the goal. And I think Núñez will be that type of forward in five-a-side. But at the same time, he's also got the speed and the pace to sort of track back. So he definitely won't be making our defenders' lives any easier anyway as well. So I think that's a good selection.
You say our defenders, not sure Mo's got any defenders yet, has he?
I was going to say it's kind of left me in a bit of a quandary here because well, we'll see. Okay, we'll get into it once it's my turn. Obviously, Ben, it's your turn now, so you get to have your third pick.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for probably not one you guys would have selected either. I'm gonna go for Shaqiri. I think in five-a-side, he's got that shooting ability similar probably to Núñez, where he could probably score from anywhere, and his powerful thighs and calves muscles I think will come in handy getting those shots off in five-a-side and hopefully beating Alisson as well. I mean, he'll have experience of that in training. So yeah, I'm going to go for Shaqiri, and I think defensively as well, he's someone who can contribute, and yeah, he's just got that technique. I think that's important in five-a-side.
I'm trying to stay cool with my poker face here, but I was literally about to pick Shaqiri. I'm not even joking. For all the reasons you said, and if you think about the downsides to Shaqiri and Liverpool shirt, it was basically his engine. Well, that's completely eliminated in a five-a-side game for two reasons. One, it's a much smaller pitch, and two, you can just kind of hang out in the up front. We can probably deal with the other ones without him. But damn it, James, what do you reckon? Do you think that this is a sneaky pick, or are you not having Shaqiri?
No, I like it as well. I thought he might be left towards the end. I sort of had him penciled in as a kind of later pick if he was going spare. I like him a lot. I thought he was always one of my sneaky favourites. Love the way he plays. Love watching Switzerland when he plays for them, where he's just a different beast entirely. Incredible. And that's almost more kind of five-a-sidey because they play him as that number 10 with a bit more freedom, where he just kind of does cool stuff. And, that's what he'll be doing at five-a-side all the time. Yeah, it's a good pick, and everyone likes the lefty as well in five-a-side. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a strong pick. I like it.
I mean, I've been thinking about a lot what Peter Crouch was saying when he was talking about Shaqiri when we signed him, and a lot of it was based around those kind of small, short-sided games and his ability to be able to pick through like nobody's business. You guys have left me with a bit of a struggle here because, I mean, I had two options for a defender, but considering who you guys have now gone for up front, it kind of leaves me a little bit stuck. But once again, I get two picks. So with my first pick, I'm going to do the thing that I said that I didn't want to see anymore. I'm going to pick Fabinho. I'm going to make him a defender because he has a little bit more physicality than some of the other defenders left on the list. Like Sepp Vandenberg is improving, don't get me wrong, but he's still a young man. And Raggy, well, I'd love to say I'm going to pick him, but he's not going to get it. He's not going to get in this team. It's too high a bar, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm going to have Fab. He's not going to have to do a lot of defending. He's more going to be covering spaces, but he's got the technical ability. He can finish when he gets up front. So I feel like all round he's going to be able to do a job for me. And he plays very well with Thiago, as I'm sure you remember. So, what do you think? Do you think it's as stretch as anyone going to call BS on my Fab's centre half pick?
No, I think it's smart. I mean, I thought I was trying to come up with a contingency plan if Kanate and Matip went, and I hadn't thought of that. I was going to pick Klavan, to be honest with you. Just so yeah, Fabinho was. People forget how good he was at centre back for a little while there. He maybe went off the boil a little bit, and he had some injury problems because he was probably not helped by being out of position. But yeah, he did look almost world class at centre back as well as defensive midfield when he first moved back there. And yeah, particularly in the confines of five-a-side where he'll be able to move about quite freely as well. Yeah, I think it's sensible given who's gone.
I think so. And I mean, there's, like you say, when you get to the stage of the draw, you've got to try and make some compromises. And the beauty of this is that they're all good players, really. That's kind of why we bought them. So you can kind of make do amend. And I'm about to make a lot of people on the internet very, very happy because I'm going to pair Fabinho and Thiago with Naby Keita because he is my fourth pick. I thought about Fabio Carvalho, to be honest. I mean, he is meant to be a Coutinho clone, and Coutinho was indeed the king of the five-a-side game. But I think, once again, Naby Keita, people underestimate his ability in short spaces, his ability to drop a shoulder in a small place, his ability to actually shield the ball well. And I think these are all going to be qualities that come into play when you're playing the five-a-side. He's not necessarily going to get brushed off. He's got a good engine. As long as no one goes into any heavy tackles, I'm looking at you, Mr. Kanate. I think we'll work with Naby. Was he on your pick, James? Was he on your radar?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely lining him up. I didn't think he'd be left by the time it got back round to me, to be honest. But yeah, he's that classic kind of all action, isn't he? Like you say, decent in small spaces, and he has that kind of proven element compared to someone like a Carvalho. Yeah, I think it's a good pick. The thing with the midfield, there's quite a lot of them in there who you think, yeah, they'd probably do a pretty good job in five-a-side. So much as I like him, and I probably would have picked him if I was presented with the midfielders left to you, I don't think it's necessarily a huge advantage to get him over some of the other ones. I think you've left a lot of good options on the table, so I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's the bullish talk. I mean, the bullish talk of a man who's maybe got what he wanted and believes that the rest of this is all academic because he's got bloody Alisson. And he might have a point. You may well have a point. Ben, it's time for you to select. I believe you've got 2 more selections to go. This is your penultimate one. I'm just looking at you've got at the moment. Neither of us have picked a goalkeeper, so depending on how if you have one over those 2 that you particularly favor, then it might be worth jumping in now.
Well, no, because I'll get to pick before you anyway. So I think I leave the goalkeeper question till last. I think I'm gonna go for Caballo purely because he has that chemistry with Elliot. They grew up together in the Fulham Academy for a few seasons, played at youth level for England as well. So they'll know each other well, and that chemistry I think will be important. I think I'm not really. I considered going for Mane, but I'm not gonna really go have like an out and out forward. I'm gonna have Shaqiri, Elliot, and Caballo sort of interchange in those forward roles, and have Matip behind them as shield and as cover. And yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna go for.
I mean, that works out quite well. I can see how that works. To be honest, I almost picked Carvalho simply because I knew you were going to, and just to mess you up. But he makes a good point, James. I mean, the whole Fabio Harvey connection is something that's been trailed for a long time now. Hopefully, we are going to get to see them together in the red shirt rather than one competing with the other for the same role. But again, you can see his logic, can't you?
You can see the logic, yeah, definitely. It's a very tricky little team he's got there, isn't it? Shaqiri and Carvalho and Elliott. It's all very nice, all very technical, but it all falls apart when Canate gets involved. I'll tell you that right now. I like it. It's a good team, but it's very, very strong technically. But I'm still backing my lads.
Yeah, to be fair, Canate is going to have at least 2 of them under each arm. But we'll have to wait and see. Well, I'd love to see a hypothetical game with all these players. Maybe we should send this over to to Kirby, and just say, maybe you should just play this out just for our amusement. But we'll see. So, James, you have your final pick now, I believe. So,
my final 2, yeah.
Of course, yes, final 2.
Yeah, so I need a midfielder pronto. A lot of them have gone. But given your parameters, I think you've helped me out quite a lot, to be honest, because in terms of peak Liverpool form, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, I think, is a great pick. His problem has always been living up to that best form, not always through his own fault. There's been lots of injury problems, but yeah, at his peak, he's a menace, isn't he? He's got an eye for goal as well. He can hit them against Manchester City. Sticks in the mind from his first season, but yeah, he gets around well. He'll run throughout the whole game, no problem. They'll be closing down. The fact that he's had the experience as a forward and as a midfielder, and indeed as a wing back for Arsenal, that stands him in good stead for five-a-side. He knows his way around the pitch. I think, like I say, if I'd had Keita available, I might have gone for him. I'd have been tempted by Fabio Carvalho, but then I'd have had 2 of the new signings who we've not even seen for Liverpool. Might have been a bit risky. So I'm quite pleased that Oxlade-Chamberlain is left on the table, and I think he's a good addition.
So are you saying 2018, 19, or 1920? When did you think is peak Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, Klopp's kind of heralded his peak multiple times. He even said around Christmas this season that he was in the best shape he's ever seen him. And, you can say maybe that was just a confidence booster ahead of January when Salah was off. But it did perform quite well in that period. But yeah, you probably would be stretching it to say that was his peak. Even that first season, he was very good straight after he joined. But I think you'd probably have to. I might even say that little window before the first major injury. But the fact that we can mention later seasons is credit to him and how well he bounced back from that injury. So yeah, there's a couple of periods I think you could highlight as his peak. But yeah, just taking holistically prime Oxlade-Chamberlain as a concept rather than a specific period, I think he'd do well.
So you've got one from each category now. So I'll be interested to see where you're placing your 5th pick.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think just in terms of general, ignoring the personnel left on the table, my inclination would be a kind of 1-2-1 situation, especially with Alisson being able to step out a bit, maybe play as a kind of second defender. I don't need another defender. But with the midfielders left, I mean, I don't want to slight Wijnaldum. Obviously, he was an amazing player for Liverpool, achieved a lot, was a key part of the success we had. But does he add that much to my team compared to getting an extra forward in there? I think probably not, because I'm very happy with Alisson and with Canate. I'm very happy with how secure that is. I think Oxlade-Chamberlain will cover some good ground. So I think I can get away with another forward. And Diogo Jota and Sadio Mane are still on the table, both very tempting options. I think I'd go Jota on the whole, just because of the five-a-side context, because I've got Nunes, who'll maybe be, I mean, as Ben said, maybe lurking a little bit by the goal. I'd like to think he'd get back for me a little bit, but he's the main sort of goal getter in the team. So a Jota in there as a kind of foil to him. He'll drop back a lot more. He'll be buzzing around, making a nuisance of himself like he does so well. He's one of the best pressers in the team. I can't remember if he presses more than Firmino, but it's close. And obviously Firmino not an option in this, given that Klopp didn't sign him. But yeah, I think that gives me the best balance, putting Jota in there. So yeah, that leaves me with Alisson, Canate, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Jota and Nunes, which I very much like the look of.
I mean, I can see both arguments with Jota, because you're right, he is a pressing machine. and we're hopefully going to see him and Nunes link up quite well. But in terms of his link-up play, that was kind of some of the parts of his game that was letting him down last season, Ben, wasn't it, if you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, he was a great finisher, especially at the start of the season. I think maybe his finishing kind of petered out towards the end, but yeah, his link-up play at times that nothing compared to, for example, Firmino, who I'm very disappointed is not on this list. Unfortunately, he was not. Even though he feels like a Jurgen Klopp summer signing, he was still a Brendan Rodgers one. So close yet so far away, and I think Firmino would have been the perfect option. But Jota at times I felt like lacked that, and I think that's something he needs to build on if he does want to have more of a role in the team next season.
No, for sure. Okay, so it's time for your final pick. Put me out my misery. Which unpredictable goalkeeper am I going to have to pretend to like?
Well, I'm going to go for Karius because if we're going peak form, forget all about the Champions League final. Before that, I mean, Karius was pretty good. He made some incredible saves, and I think his reflexes are really good, which I think will come in handy for five-a-side. He's very good at shot stopping, and at the same time, he's fairly decent on the ball as well, which I don't think can be said for Adrian. I would worry about Adrian on a five-a-side pitch, just based on his track record at Liverpool. So I think I'm going to go for Karius. Yeah.
I can't lie. I would have picked Karius as well for a lot of the same reasons. And it's an interesting point you make about that period just before the Champions League final. James, it's probably the biggest shame of Karius' whole Liverpool career is the fact that that period before the cliff that he went over, he was actually really, really good and looked like he was starting to prove why all the faith was put into it.
Yeah, it's one of the classic what could have been, isn't it? It's, if he'd had a good game in that Champions League final, who knows? Maybe he'd have gone on to fulfill that potential. Maybe we'd never have signed Alisson. There's so many unknowns. So in the end, Liverpool will look at it and say it worked out pretty nicely. But from an individual perspective, yeah, it's a great shame because of course his career has just gone nowhere since. A couple of basically unsuccessful loans, and yeah, just finally left in the summer. So yeah, it's really a career that's stalled badly. I mean, I think the season before he signed for us as well, he was voted second best goalkeeper in the Bundesliga behind only Manuel Neuer. So he was very promising. I mean, ultimately we still signed him for something like £4 million. He wasn't one of the brightest prospects in the game, but he definitely had potential. He was expected to have a big future in the game, and yeah, it's. I think that's easily forgotten because of the Champions League final and what transpired afterwards.
It is. And I mean, I believe he's finally left the club this summer. So his official Liverpool career is going to be marked by that one game. And yeah, it is a shame. I hope he can find somewhere to resurrect his career because there is some talent still in there. So, yes, I'm left with Adrian in goal. And you're right. You're all right. This is possibly the worst kind of place to have Adrian because let's not forget he is still a capable, competent goalkeeper, but it's the lapses of concentration, particularly around having the ball at his feet, which are his problem. So, from that perspective, might be a bit of an issue. However, I think if it goes deep into a game, I've got quite a few good forwards or good players who can put the ball in the net. If it goes deep, goes tight, we go to penalties, suddenly it starts looking a little bit rosy for Mo because I was in Istanbul to see him win that penalty shootout against Chelsea. And whereas when Alisson won his penalty shootout, I think it's fair to say he got some help from the Chelsea players. In that Super Cup, the Chelsea players, those saves were critical and really good saves. So I'm going to big up my man. I'm also just going to say, look, Fabinho, don't go too far. Just keep an eye on him. Just keep an eye on him. But yeah, it's ironic, isn't it? We've been saying about how great this squad is, and it's literally with the last pick that we see any kind of real weakness. So that is a testament to the strength that we've got here. But okay, I feel like I'm mostly confident. Apart from that, I think, to be honest, you guys aren't really going to get near my goal. You're not going to get near the ball. Like, you're not getting the ball off them. Like, Fabinho, Thiago, Naby Keita, Mo Salah, thank you, good night. Like, you guys might as well just bring your own ball. I mean, okay, so if we were all three teams going to play against each other, I am still confident. And I'm not just saying, I am confident that we'd score enough goals and keep you away from our goal enough to get the win. Ben, how are you feeling about your team?
Yeah, I'm feeling confident. I think I'd have that annoying team where you couldn't really get the ball off of any of our players. They just, link up and keep the ball at their feet. And I would be confident of scoring as well, because all three of my midfielders are players who are capable of putting the ball in the back of the net and have a good range. And then as well, on top of, I think Matip is the icing on the cake, who can sort of run forward and grab a few as well.
I can see a world where that happens. But I mean, as we've mentioned previously, James, they are all very little. And although the size makes less of a difference in five-a-side, it still makes a difference. And I mean, like we said, we're not going to be, I say we're not going to be playing balls in the air. We might be outside. I dare say if we are, I can think what your tactics are going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm covered for all eventualities. Canate could become a sort of auxiliary number 9 if necessary. But yeah, it's a nice team. Don't get me wrong, I like it, and it's a classic five-a-side team. It's a definite genre of five-a-side team that you see in real life. All of these precocious teenagers who are annoyingly good, but yeah. Someone's going to have to shoot. Someone's going to have to pull the trigger. All right, they'll pass it around in some nice little triangles for a while. They'll do some little step overs or whatever you like. And then eventually Shaqiri will get bored. He'll try a shot from the halfway line or something. And Alisson will pluck it out of the air like it's the easiest thing in the world. And then my lads will have the ball and will obviously go on and score just because it's the perfect team. There is no weakness. I don't know why this podcast is still happening. I have the best team.
Okay. Well, I'll let you know when we're going to finish. But before we finish, we need to give the viewers the full scope of exactly what we're talking about. So let's bring in all three of our teams as we can see them, as we pick them now. So James, there's your team first. I mean, it makes it, when you see it down there, you can almost see the formation as it's going to come. It looks decent. You've got a few maybe question marks around Chamberlain if someone goes in early on him or even just distracts him by telling him a joke. He might wander off. But other than that, I think, that's a strong team. So
his long name is doing me some favours there. It's making my midfield look a lot more bulky than it actually is.
Yeah, his name's covering more ground in midfield than he definitely would be, for sure. Okay, Ben, what about your team? Let's have a look. Again, we can almost see the issue here. It's strong through the middle, but then you get to the bit up top and there's literally a gap.
I mean, Cavallo scored about 10 goals last season. He's pretty good at finishing. Shaqiri as well. I think he can pop up with a goal here and there. And Elliott is the perfect creator. So I'm not really concerned about goals, to be honest.
Nunez will score 10 goals in the first 10 minutes, mate. Learn by the season.
All I can say is that Matip's going to be throwing out his arms, exasperated at all the little monsters ahead of him, wondering what's going on. And last but by no means least, let's have a look at my team. Now, even there, just the way it's been positioned, you can already see the way that the ball is going to travel. It's going to go in, it's going to go out, and no one's going to be able to come into that little circle and steal it off of them. So, all the best, lads. Generally, the fellow at the back doesn't even matter. Honestly. I'm saying that like I believe it, and I do believe it. But James, I'm not just talking out my backside here, am I?
Seeing it written down like that, it does look better than I gave it credit for. Like, I prefer mine, but it would you'd maybe give mine a game and a push. It's well, I share Ben's doubts about Thiago, by the way. Like, I think you're wasting his best qualities. He has those long range passes. Salah loves to run onto them. It's just not going to happen. The pitch is too small.
The long range passes are the ones for the cameras. The real ones are those little half passes where he just kind of finds a little angle or a little alleyway that doesn't exist. And trust me, if you guys are going into this underestimating Thiago Alcantara, then I'm feeling even better about my team than I was before. But Interestingly, let's have a look at the guys who none of us picked, because there are a couple here who I thought maybe would have gone in. Obviously, we mentioned Sadio Mane, but I mean Robertson. Like, if you think about his qualities, his tenaciousness, his ability to get up and down, he's quite a jewel. I'm surprised that no one went for him. Ben, are you?
Yeah, it is a bit surprising, I think. But then again, I think Robertson's biggest quality is his pace. And I think because of that, I don't really see him using his sort of like, if he takes players on one, he won't be able to use that pace of his. And then his second best asset, I think, going forward is his crosses. And again, like most of the five-a-side rules only allow balls below shoulder height. So is he going to be able to do those crosses? Is he going to have the space as well to do crosses? I don't know. So maybe he's not the best option. I mean, maybe we're all smart to kind of avoid him.
I mean, I noticed you brought that shoulder height rule in there because you've got the tiniest team out of everybody. We might have to look at that particular rule because obviously I feel like James might want it changed. So we'll have a look at that in the future. But to be honest, we've all got good teams, and even there, the players who were left behind, you could make a good 5 out of those, even if you had to put Sepp Vandenberg in goal. But there we have it, everybody. These are the teams that we have chosen. Now it's up to you to decide who you think has picked the best team. But I, as I said, hopefully the people at Liverpool are watching this, and maybe they're stuck for something to do in training tomorrow. Maybe they can throw this one in there. But James, Ben, thank you for spending this time arguing with me over a group of fantastic players. I think we'll all agree on that. We'll have to wait and see what the results come in, but hopefully it was a bit of fun for you guys too. We'll see you next time.